Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so the main claim that I'm refuting is that Chrysler's Jeep brand provides a cost-effective way to pursue off-road driving adventures. So a couple of things is first, I want to kind of define what the off-road driving adventure is, and if it actually is more cost-effective, and then talk about his supports, which were that there's more access to parts for your Jeeps, and that the ability to work on it yourself reduces the cost. So the first thing, according to a research study that's called Four-Wheel Drive Stats, How Many Four-Wheel Drive Owners Actually Go Off-Road by Jim Walzak. It said, but consumers' off-road use data can be skewed somewhat depending on the definition of off-road. Auto industry researcher Auto Pacific Incorporation of Santa Ana, California, found 13.4% of sport utility drivers said they go off-roading for recreation, and another 21.7% use their vehicle to get off-road camping, fishing, and hiking sites. So the main part about this claim is he said that it was used for off-roading, but he never specifically said what type of off-roading it was. And for this, it depends, the statistics depend on what type of off-roading he's talking specifically about. The next part is that he talked about it being a cost-effective way to pursue it. So he said that Chrysler's Jeep brand provides a cost-effective way to pursue this off-roading. He gave no stats on how much it costs or how much it would save you if you bought a Jeep compared to something else. So I looked up, a Jeep Wrangler costs roughly $22,000. A Ford F-150 costs roughly $24,000. So it's a $2,000 difference. But I looked up how much each one actually weighs compared to how much it can actually carry. The Jeep weighs roughly 4,000 pounds and can only carry roughly 900. So the ratio per pound that it can carry is roughly 0.216 pounds. And for the Ford, it weighs roughly 5,500 pounds. Sorry, 5,500 pounds and can carry 3,000 pounds. So the ratio per pound, it can carry roughly 0.5 pounds. So it can carry almost twice as much weight per pound than the Jeep can. And if you're not looking for carrying weight on your off-roading adventure, you're just going out for a single day, then what you could do is you could look into a 2014 Honda 4Trax Foreman Rubicon, and that's an ATV and that only costs $8,000. You wouldn't be able to carry much luggage on it and other things for camping, but again, it goes back to the first part about what is your definition of off-roading. So now it goes into his support. He says that the company's 70-plus year history and variety of models provides more access to aftermarket parts than any other brands. For those of you that don't know, an aftermarket part is basically an accessory that you could buy and purchase and put on your car afterwards. Another thing is he only used one citation for this, which was explorerpahistory.com. And he talks about the Jeep's interchangeable parts, but again, there's no statistics that says how many parts it actually has compared to other companies. So for this, he said that supply increased because the Army demand was so high, which led to the public desire of the vehicle itself. And the aftermarket parts are readily interchangeable between past and future versions of the same vehicle. And when I compare these to what he said, I'm not sure how these actually say that they provide more access. He says that it was popular and that they have interchangeable parts, but that doesn't necessarily say they have more than other companies. So what I looked into is, I looked roughly into how long the average person keeps a car. According to Mark Singh of Polk Analysis, he said the typical buyer of a new car keeps the vehicle for 71.4 months, roughly 6 years, and he was quoted in the LA Times of February 2012. So I went to a auto parts site. It was called autotrucktoys.com, and I searched a 2014 Ford F-150, and for the 6 years that the person normally owns a car, I went to a 2008 Ford F-150, and I searched some of the accessories for those, and a lot of them came out exactly the same type of accessory, meaning that yes, Jeep has the ability to interchange those parts with future, past, and current models, but so do these other cars as well. The next thing he talked about was the ability to work on the vehicle yourself helps avoid labor costs, and that is true. But, so he talks about where he could get the parts. You can get them at Rugged Ridge, 4-wheel parts, and they provide all these different parts for the Jeep. And I looked into these, and a lot of them, yes, they provide accessories and aftermarket parts for the Jeep. They also provide it for Ford, for Honda, for all these other different places. And he said there's a lot of videos on YouTube. If you search how to Jeep, you'll get roughly 1 million views. So that's what I did. I came up with 1,340,000 videos. And then I searched how to Ford, just out of curiosity. I came up with 5 million. And then I thought to myself, well, why do you need that many videos to help fix your car? If you're fixing or attaching something, you probably need 1 to 2 videos. You don't actually need 1 million videos to help do that. So how does that actually help you with that many number of videos? How does that help with that? So the last thing is that there wasn't a whole lot of supporting evidence in this. I'm not saying that his information is wrong. His information is correct. There are other parts and things. But to me it felt a lot of almost like he is advertising. This is what Jeep has, and he just left out the other part of what it doesn't have. So there was a lot of just confusion when I was doing this. So I hope you kind of see that there's a lot of things that needed to be more well defined in this, and a lot more statistics that needed to be shown through it.
Danny, you did a very good job trying to find places where there's clash on the issue. I thought the attempt to do a comparison between the off-road statistics was helpful. There's a little bit of question as to why that's so important. It comes up later on in the presentation, and I think you need to kind of come back to that point when it does come up later on. But you had a good explanation about why maybe the Jeep isn't a preferable one in comparison to Ford's, for instance, and I thought that was interesting that you were consistent on the Ford comparison that you went for the rest of the presentation. That worked pretty well. On the cost issue for looking at ATVs, if you're just going off-roading, let's face it, the cost that you mentioned for that, I think it was a Honda ATV type thing, was minuscule in comparison to either of the other vehicles that you did the comparison on. And since the advocate didn't really present a standard for what their reason was for off-roading, that's where your argument comes back into play, that the vast majority of people aren't even doing this. So if they were doing this, then it's really a tiny fraction of anybody would have to make this comparison. And if they were going to make that comparison, here's something that would give you a much better value for your dollar spent. I thought that you did a nice job on that. The explanation of the aftermarket products I thought was also very clear. The way you challenged the criteria that the Jeeps are in some way unique was appropriate. The comparison that you had between how long an average person holds onto their vehicle, I thought that was an interesting way to do it. I don't remember that the advocate really stressed about how old the vehicles would be. I got the impression from the advocate's original argument that it might be decades of interchangeable parts, but I thought that you did a reasonable job, kind of narrowing it into a particular range that seems acceptable and giving a justification for that range especially. The argument about the videos for fixing or working on these things, I think that you have a good press on that. What's the value? What's the likelihood of anybody looking at 1.3 million videos? None. And the chance of them looking at even more videos. But if it's going to be a comparison about the number of videos that you have, I think you've got an interesting standard there. And of course, everybody knows the reason there are more videos for Ford is because of what Ford stands for. No, everybody. Ford fan back there? Yeah. Sorry.